Now to the other controversy in Washington, that legitimate political discourse. That's the way the Republican National Committee describes what you are looking at here. You know it as the January 6th insurrection. The RNC, though, voting to censure two of their own because they have been outspoken in condemning the deadly riot. And then there's this. One of those who was censured, Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger, says we are now at a time when civil war is not beyond the realm of possibility. Take a listen.
It is not a far thought, Wolf, to think that someday some militia shows up somewhere to do something, and then some counter militia shows up, and truly, at that point, that's how you end up in a civil war. I never would say that we would ever have ended in that position, but I now believe it is a real possibility that we have to be wide-eyed as we walk into, so we don't have that happen again.
Some of the brightest minds in politics join us now to discuss exactly what is going on. Political strategist Ray Baker, Democratic strategist Kristal Knight, and Eugene Craig III is the CEO of X Factor Media. Kristal, I'll begin with you. Is Representative Kinzinger right? Are all the signs there? Has our political system become so fueled with hate and anger that a civil war is now possible?
I think he is leading on to something, absolutely. I think one of the things that we're seeing in this political environment, it's become very polarized. People are either on one side or the other. Folks are unwilling to speak truth about what actually happened on January the 6th, 2021. And so because of that, and because people have these strong opinions, the RNC just came out and said that the January 6th attacks were legitimate political discourse, which is unfathomable by a party of that, of its magnitude and structure. It is absolutely reminiscent of things in the past. And I can totally understand how Representative Kinzinger could say that this language, these actions that are continuously happening are leading the country to a civil war.
Ray, history is repeating itself. People would say, why would white America be at war with white America? The answer is black America. We forget that when they talk about stopping the steal, the votes that they say were stolen were in places where black people voted in large numbers and in states where black people are now exercising their political clout. Your thoughts on what the congressman said. Are we closer now to a civil war?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad that you laid it out the way that you did. White America fighting white America over black America. It was the exact same reason that we had bloody Kansas, right? We saw that those who wanted to go and bring the institution of American chattel slavery to Kansas versus those who did not want it there, they fought amongst themselves. The fight over the Civil War, in part, while over obviously slavery, was in part about this expanded Western territory that the United States was taking from the indigenous people. Who was going to have claim to that? Would it be those who did not want the American chattel slavery or those who wanted American chattel slavery? And so I appreciate Representative Kinzinger, for accurately now analyzing what we see in front of us. And I think that far too many Americans are far too timid, naivete, or mild to admit that what we're seeing in front of us is the dissolution of institutions that people have believed in. And when Americans have disbelieved in their institutions, they're willing to take arms to defend their point.
Ray, when we talk about taking arms to defend your cause, it is playing out in every document that has been released from the January 6th committee and every plea bargain that has been reached with the people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. They say they were just waiting for the signal. They were waiting for the sign. America has an extraordinary number of guns and private militias. Some of those militias are just waiting for the signal.
Well, you acknowledge me, but I would love to hear Eugene weigh in on this because much of this was his party.
Sorry, Eugene. Yeah, go ahead, Eugene.
Well, look, the thing is this. Look, I believe Adam Kinzinger is 100% correct here, right? All it takes is another militia to show up when you have one militia already showing up. A lot of these folk that showed up on January 6th, they were just waiting for the signal. They were, working under the orders of Donald Trump and Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani and others. They were, only there because, hey, this was supposed to be their moonshot to stop the steal. They were working under the false pretense that, oh, hey, Mike Pence has the power to slowly stop the election and overturn the election. And for what it's worth, you saw, 100 members of the House, Senate support their actions. with question the validity of the electors of certain. And so, yeah, they showed up waiting for the call. They showed up waiting for the signal, and yeah, they got capital. And here we are with 800 charges with everything from sedition, insurrection to simple assault.
Kristal, here is my question to those that say it's not possible. Take a look at the footage again and ask yourself, what are we looking at? What are we looking at when you have people storming the Capitol saying that they are going to take back their country, from whom nobody ever really defined that day? I was actually down there. But when you talk about what a civil war looks like, the only thing missing from this particular conflict was the other side. There was not another side to fight back. There were armed militias waiting in the wings to fight back. Had the National Guard been called in, had the police officers on Capitol Hill opened fire, had those black officers who were being called the N-word and assaulted had decided to take out their frustrations on the crowd, there but for the grace of God goes this nation. Kristal, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at these images, it just reminds you of the assault on democracy and how so many people in this country have been polarized by one particular party, the Republican Party in this country, and have been led astray by Donald Trump. These are people who went to, Washington, D.C., in support of the president or the former president, and hoping that the election results would be overturned in one of the most legitimate, on record elections held in the United States history. Also, what we're seeing with these images are people who are angry, right? And so that's the thing that's not lost on me, is that these are angry mobs of people who are deciding to take matters into their own hands because they simply disagree with the results. And that is a dangerous point in history where we can act out our anger and assault the very institutions that we claim we believe in, that we claim make us uniquely American. And so that is the thing that I want, folks to remember, is that when we are displeased with the way results turn out of elections, this is not the normal way. This is not how democracy works, that you just go and attack and try to overturn something because you simply disagree. But that's where we are, and we have to figure out how we can stop this from happening again.
Kristal, Ray, Eugene, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about I have seen the enemy, and it looks like us. If it is shock and awe she wanted to achieve, a Houston area voting precinct chair did just that. The leader of the GOP Cypress area precinct releasing a list of resolutions for the party to adopt, and it is rattling a lot of nerves. It included reducing gay marriage to civil unions, labeling all Chinese nationalists as spies and then forcibly removing them from the country, and waging a war on all invaders at the Texas border, and here's the catch, with deadly force. Ray, Kristal, Eugene, as you can imagine, the 7-item proposal drawing a lot of reactions. Ray, we thought that, Ray, let's think about it this way. We thought that Donald Trump was out there. Then we thought that QAnon was out there. Is this woman out there, or as they say, I have seen the enemy and it is us, and us in this case is anybody other than them?
Well placed, Del. I tell you what, we might need to reverse roles and let us ask you the questions. You're on fire today. I think that you're absolutely correct. You acknowledge that. Is this woman out of the ordinary? No, she's not. We know that she's not, because racism in the United States only needs to be provoked to raise its ugly head. We know that the number of people that Richard Nixon courted, that Ronald Reagan courted, they called themselves the silent majority. When you elect an African-American man to be president of the United States, that majority is no longer silent. When you elect an African-American woman to be vice president of the United States, that majority is no longer silent. When we see the power that Stacey Abrams wields in Georgia and what that meant for the nation, that majority is no longer silent. And so the part that we would often say would be the silent part, but the part that we didn't say so often was the majority part. And so if we examine the idea that this is a base feeling among many Americans, why? Because American ideology is premised on the idea that there is one group of people at the top of human beings, and there's another group at the bottom. In your opening piece about race, you mentioned the fact that there was some in New York that would say that the Southern Italians were the worst immigrants they had ever seen. If you take Black people out of the space, white people will will find out who among them are the dreaded N-words. So all of this is to say that this ugly rearing of this head is very much in line with the United States. And sadly, as you so eloquently said, the enemy is us.
Kristal, every family has its crazy aunt or uncle. My question of you, if you are a Democratic or, for that matter, a Republican strategist, are these the people that are sitting at the big table or the little table?
Wow, that's a great question, Dale. I mean, obviously, she's sitting at a table of influence, regardless of if it's big or the little table, big or small. This kind of, information and rhetoric, it just doesn't belong in the public discourse. And these 7 points that she has outlined. Why is this something that a county election official should be spewing to constituents across her district? It is absolutely disgusting. She should be removed from office immediately. She should be removed from that position. And Governor Abbott needs to rebuke her words. He needs to stand up and say that there's no room for that kind of language in the political discourse of Texas, in the political discourse of the entire state. Because what she's doing is signaling to all of the other folks who may feel that way or may harbor those kinds of feelings that it's okay to be outwardly racist, that it's okay to call people derogatory names and make people feel less than because they're non-white, essentially. Or that's the way I took it, what she's saying. And so we need to see leaders in the state step up and say something and condemn those words. She absolutely needs to be removed from office, and people should wake up and understand that more of this will continue to happen once this large majority, this white majority, refuses to speak up and condemn these kinds of behaviors.
Eugene, unless, of course, she is speaking for them, speaking for Greg Abbott, a ban on sex education in school, mandatory death penalty for people who kill a cop, also killing people who cross the border illegally. She says that should be something in which lethal force is used. Is she the exception or the rule in the Republican Party in Texas?
Look, I'm not a member of the RPT, and I don't speak for the RPT. But I will say this: I would probably, if I had to put money on, I think that she's probably an outlier. But that's not to say that people like her don't exist. You saw them, manifest their, the worst parts of Trump and the worst parts of QAnon. Well, as part of QAnon, but more importantly, more recently, as anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers. These are the same folk that run in these same crowds. That think that, oh, hey, people that are crossing the border for a better life are invading the country, right? That every person that of Asian descent is a Chinese national, that is a spy, that's here to undermine America, among other things. So those folks don't speak for the majority of Republicans, but they do exist within the party. The same way that we've had the extremists when the far right exists within the party from its inception.
You can only wonder what would happen if Mitch McConnell traveled to Texas with his lovely wife, Elaine Chao. Awkward might be the word that would come to mind. Kristal, Ray, Eugene, thank you. We will see you all in the next hour. Stay with us. You're watching DC Today.